Okay, so in this last tutorial, what we're going to talk about is how to use the switch to control the introduction and the ending, as well as adding some stingers into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the, so we're in the switch container. We're going to go to transitions, and right now the transitions are set up so that we exit the source music, our current cue, at the exit of that cue, which means that it's not going to happen immediately. It will happen at the end of the phrase, which is working great. But we want to add two more in, and this will teach us a little bit about using transition segments. So I'm going to add a specific transition that basically goes from nothing to explore. Explore is my first state. So when I go from none to explore, what's going to happen? I'm actually going to use my intro. So my intro is going to play as the transition to get me from none to explore. Then it's going to play this, and then, so let's hear that in context. So if I go to none, and I press play, and then I press explore, and let's just make sure that that's what my intro sounds like. And my intro sounds like, so that didn't work quite the way I wanted it to. So let me just try again. Maybe it had to do with that I wasn't playing my switch container. So I'll go from none into explore again. There we go. Now it's playing my correct introduction, and now it's going to play my explore. Good. Now I'm going to go to my chase state. So after this phrase. Okay, so I guess it took a little bit to kick in to save that. So and then lastly, I want to create a different transition. So we add another transition which goes from my last state, which is fight, to nothing. And when I do that, then I'm going to use my loop end. So I'll use transition state segment, pick my loop end, and then I'm going to check this out. So I'm going to just click on it again, maybe to reset it. I'll go into fight right away. Then I'll go to none. So at the end of this phrase, it played the ending that I wanted. So that's how to set up your intro and your end. Now we just have stingers to set up. Stingers need a trigger. We need to do that under the Game Syncs tab, under Triggers. So right click, New Child, Trigger, and I'll say Stinger 1. Let's call it Trigger 1 instead of Stinger 1, just so that we're not confused. So I'll call it Trigger 1. I don't want to get confused with the actual audio files that we have, which are called stingers. So I'll call this Trigger 2, and then the last one, Trigger 3. Great, we have 3 triggers set up. I go back to the audio tab, into the switch, double click, and you can see there are things called stingers here. And I can add a stinger, which basically uses, say, Trigger 1, and then that will play Stinger 1. And it will play whenever I want it. Immediately, next beat, the entry cue, which is like the next phrase, the beginning of the next phrase. So I'm just going to set 3 up, 1 to play on each one of the triggers, and then I'm going to set it up so that each one of these plays a separate stinger, and they play immediately. And we're going to listen to that in a second. But there's something kind of cool here. I'm putting them in my switch container, but let's say I have 3 triggers that I want them to change from explore to chase. If I go to explore, guess what? There's a stinger section inside of that too. So the switch will cover them globally, but I can have separate stingers using the same triggers for explore, chase, and fight. So we'll just listen to make sure this works. And so I'm going to start with my explore state. Remember, it's using that first transition, kind of that intro state, to get into Explore. Now we're in Explore. In my transport control, I can see that I have four different tabs here: state, switches, RPTCs, and triggers. I'm going to go to triggers, and then I'm going to play my first trigger. So I just played that little harp run. And then I'm going to play trigger 2. It's like that chimey thing. And then lastly, I'll play trigger 3. I'll play again. Now go into chase. All right, and it's working. That's the end of our branching tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it and look forward to hearing your projects.